Gary, Indiana. Small house on Jackson Street. 5 brothers who changed everything. You know the hits. You know the moves. But some things about the Jackson 5 never made the papers. Strange things, real things, things that'll make you see them different. 20 of them, in fact. And that last one, well, it still matters today. Number 20. Joe built guitars from scratch. Jackson built the family's first guitars himself. He didn't have money for new instruments, so he took pieces of wood and wire and made them work. The boys learned to play on those homemade guitars, practicing for hours until their fingers hurt. Stopping wasn't an option in that house. There was no gentleness in those early days. Joe ran rehearsals like a drill sergeant. The neighbors could hear the music through the walls, the same songs over and over until they were flawless. Those makeshift guitars never made it to the stage, but they made the musicians. Number 19. Michael wasn't the original lead singer. Michael wasn't supposed to be the lead singer. That honor was meant for Jermaine, who had the smooth, controlled voice that soul music demanded. But one afternoon during rehearsal, little Michael started singing along from the side, matching every note and adding something no one could teach. Yeah, she knows what she's doing. Joe stopped the music and listened. Michael was only 5 years old, barely able to reach the microphone. But when he sang, he didn't sound like a child. He sounded like he understood heartbreak and longing in ways that shouldn't have been possible. Sometimes the right voice finds you when you're not even looking for it. Number 18. They performed at strip clubs. The group performed at strip clubs before they ever touched a legitimate stage. Those were the only venues that would book young black acts in the Midwest during the mid-1960s. The boys set up equipment in back rooms that smelled like cigarettes and beer, playing between adult acts. Ain't nothing like the real thing, baby. Katherine Jackson hated it. She'd sit in the car outside, waiting, praying. But Joe insisted this was the path. The boys learned to win over audiences that had no reason to care. Strange education. But it taught them how to survive any stage. Number 17. Diana Ross didn't really discover them. Diana Ross didn't actually discover the Jackson 5. The brothers had already been performing for years and had cut local records. But Gordy knew that a story about Diana Ross finding these talented children would sell better than the truth, so that became the official narrative. The real discovery came through Gladys Knight and Bobby Taylor, who saw the boys perform and insisted Gordy needed to hear them. You walk around with your head up in the sky, as you do now. But when Motown rolled out the publicity, it was Diana's name in the headlines. In the music business, sometimes the story matters more than the facts. Number 16. Gordy kept them in his mansion. Gordy housed the Jackson 5 in his mansion when they first moved to California. But it wasn't charity. He wanted complete control. The boys lived in his guest house, rehearsed on his property, followed his rules. Luxury, but also a gilded cage. Michael remembered those days as both magical and lonely. They had a pool and tennis courts, but couldn't just be kids. Every moment was scheduled. Gordy was building stars, not raising children. I had you to myself, I didn't want you around. But right after that mansion chapter, the next twist gets even stranger. Number 15. Their cartoon used fake voices. The Jackson 5 cartoon series in 1971 featured voices that weren't actually the brothers. ABC hired voice actors to play every Jackson except Michael. The other brothers watched cartoons of themselves speaking in strangers' voices.
This is serious. We can't let all those little animals down.
The show ran for 2 seasons and introduced the group to millions of children who'd never heard their music. Strange publicity. Seeing yourself drawn and voiced and living a scripted life every Saturday morning. But it worked. Fame finds you in the oddest ways. Quick question for you. Do you remember watching the Jackson 5 on Saturday morning television? Or was it radio first for you? Tell me which one in the comments. Number 14. Jackie performed with a broken knee. Jackie Jackson broke his knee during a rehearsal in 1970, and the group had to perform on television with him sitting in a chair. The other brothers danced around him while he sang his part seated, his leg in a brace, smiling through the pain. The show went on because the show always went on. That moment revealed something about the group's commitment. They'd been trained since childhood to push through anything, to never let the audience see the struggle. Jackie sang every note perfectly from that chair. Professionalism sometimes means performing even when everything hurts. Number 13. Michael studied James Brown for hours. Michael used to study James Brown footage for hours, watching the same performances over and over until he could replicate every spin, every slide, every piece of footwork. He'd practice in front of mirrors, alone, trying to capture that same electricity. The other brothers would hear him late at night, still working. What he took from Brown wasn't just the moves, but the understanding that a performance was more than singing. It was theater, emotion, connection. Michael absorbed that lesson and then added his own grace to it. The greatest artists are always students first. Number 12. The Funk Brothers got no credit. Motown's house musicians, the Funk Brothers, played on every Jackson 5 hit, but never received credit. These were the same legendary players who'd created the Motown sound for the Supremes and Temptations. But Motown kept the focus on the artists. Years later, when people talked about the Jackson 5's bass lines and drum fills, they were talking about session players whose names most listeners never knew. James Jameson's bass, Benny Benjamin's drums. The brothers knew who made their records special. If this is bringing back memories, subscribing helps keep these stories alive. And don't forget to hit that like button. Let's continue. Number 11. They had a pet, Llama. The brothers had a pet llama at their California home. Not a dog or a cat, but a llama named Louie that wandered the property. It would follow them during outdoor rehearsals, occasionally making noise during vocal runs. Strange addition to an unusual household, but the llama represented something important. The boys could come home from sold-out concerts and feed Louie, be regular kids for a moment. Sometimes you hold on to the strangest things just to feel ordinary. Number 10. Their breakthrough was written for someone else. I Want You Back was originally written for Gladys Knight and the Pips. The song had a different title and slightly different lyrics, but the core melody was there. When Motown decided to give it to the Jackson 5 instead, they reworked it to fit Michael's voice. What emerged was a song that didn't sound like it came from a child, but from someone who genuinely understood loss and regret. Michael sang it with a conviction that made you forget he was 11 years old. The right song in the right voice can change everything.
We must bring salvation back.
Number 9. They never attended regular school. The boys were not allowed to attend regular school once they hit it big. Motown hired private tutors who traveled with them. Michael did homework in dressing rooms, studied geography on tour buses, learned history in hotel rooms. He missed proms and football games and normal teenage experiences. He'd talk about watching other kids through limousine windows, wondering what it felt like to just walk down the street. Success takes you places, but it also takes things away. Did you ever have a favorite teacher or school moment you still remember clearly? And does it make you think differently about what those boys missed? I'd love to read your thoughts in the comments. Number 8. 4 number ones in a row. Their first 4 singles all hit number 1 on the Billboard charts, a feat no other group had ever achieved. I Want You Back, ABC. The Love You Save, and I'll Be There. Radio stations couldn't get enough. That streak created enormous pressure. How do you follow perfection 4 times over? The brothers felt it in every recording session, every performance. But they kept delivering, kept finding new ways to sound fresh and urgent. Some records define a moment, and some moments last forever. And just when it looked like nothing could touch them, the next chapter split the Jackson 5 in a way fans did not see coming. Number 7. Jermaine left the group for Motown. Jermaine stayed with Motown when the rest of the family left to sign with Epic Records in 1970. He'd married Berry Gordy's daughter Hazel, and his loyalty was divided. The split created a rift that took years to heal. Brothers on different labels, pursuing different sounds. The group had to replace him with youngest brother Randy, learning new harmonies and reconfiguring choreography that had been built around 5 voices. They adapted, survived, kept performing even when the family was fractured. Sometimes business tears apart what music brought together. Number 6. Motown feared Michael's voice. Michael's voice changed during puberty, and Motown feared the magic was over. For months, his voice cracked and deepened, losing that distinctive high register. Producers worried, executives panicked. But when his voice settled, what emerged was even more powerful. He'd gained range and control and a richness the child's voice never had. The vulnerability was still there, but now it carried weight. Growing up doesn't always mean losing what made you special. Number 5, they choreographed their own dance moves. The group choreographed all their own dance moves in the beginning. There were no professional choreographers, just the brothers working out steps in their living room until everything clicked. They'd watch each other, mirror each other, correct each other until 5 bodies moved as one. That synchronization became their signature, the way they could spin and slide and hit marks without ever seeming rehearsed. It looked spontaneous, joyful, but every step had been practiced thousands of times. What looks effortless usually took years of effort. Number 4, Ed Sullivan. Underpaid them for exposure. Ed Sullivan refused to pay the Jackson 5 their standard performance fee, offering far less than they normally commanded. But Berry Gordy knew the value of Sullivan's show, the millions of viewers, the career-making exposure. So the group performed anyway, understanding it was an investment. That appearance introduced them to Middle America. The phones lit up. Record stores ran out of inventory. Suddenly, the Jackson 5 weren't just R&B stars. They were American stars. Sometimes you have to take less to gain more. Now we've reached the top 3, and the next one reveals a hard truth about fame. Number 3. They didn't own their name. The brothers never owned the name Jackson 5. When they left Motown, they discovered that Berry Gordy had trademarked it. They couldn't use their own name without his permission. They had to become the Jacksons instead, starting over with new branding. It was a bitter lesson about the music business. They'd built that name with years of performances and hits and hard work, but legally, it belonged to someone else. The change felt like losing part of their identity. In the music industry, you don't always own what you create. Number 2, Randy played on tracks. Before joining Randy Jackson, the youngest brother who joined after Jermaine left, actually played percussion on some Jackson 5 tracks before he was officially in the group.
Everybody clap your hands, come on.
He was only 11 or 12, sitting in on recording sessions, adding congas and bongos to songs that would become hits. when he finally stepped into Jermaine's spot. He wasn't a replacement so much as someone who'd been waiting in the wings his whole life. He knew every song, every harmony part, every dance move. Sometimes the next generation is already there, just waiting for their moment. Number 1. Michael almost didn't survive the touring. Michael Jackson almost didn't survive the first year of intense touring. The schedule was brutal for a child. He'd collapse from exhaustion backstage, wake up in strange hotel rooms not knowing what city he was in, cry from homesickness. But Michael wouldn't quit. Even through the tears and exhaustion, he wanted to perform. The stage was where he felt most alive. What almost broke him became what defined him. The Jackson 5 changed music forever. Proved black artists could dominate pop culture. And it started with 5 brothers from Gary who refused to give up. These stories don't get told enough. The weird details, the struggles, the moments that didn't make it into the legend. But they're part of what made the Jackson 5 real, made them human. If these memories connected with you, a like or subscribe helps keep them alive. And if you want to keep going, the next video is a warm trip back to the 1970s with a handful of R&B songs that only people who lived that decade tend to remember.
And Mrs. Jones.
Everybody sing, don't you know, girl, I'll be there.
Until then, keep listening.